And good evening, Cherries fans. Welcome to another edition of, and Tottenham fans, I should say as well. And welcome to another edition of the Head to Head. This week for the Spurs game, we are joined by Jack from the Rule The Roost podcast. How you doing, Jack?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me on. How you doing?
Yeah, all good. Looking forward to this weekend's game after that good win, which we'll talk about briefly in a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
very
yeah,
good.
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's nice to be looking forward to Tottenham games again, which I love. So, yeah.
Yeah, which I'm sure under certain managers it hasn't been great. Just to kick off, normally we look at both the managers, but I just want to ask a very, very quick question about this man here, Kane.
Why are you
This
doing this to me, Matt, already? Why are you doing this to me?
I thought we'd get the difficult question out of the way. But
Good man.
in terms of Kane, obviously we all know what Kane has done for Spurs and for his country. But what's your take on the whole situation?
Oh, I don't know. There's been a lot of stages of grief, that people have been kind of comparing it to with Harry Kane. At the moment, I think I'm in some sort of, I guess, probably denial. I don't know. I think it helps that we've just beaten Manchester United. It helps that Ange Postecoglou seems to have the team firing on all cylinders at the moment. The thought of losing Harry Kane before he had gone was horrible, as I'm sure you can imagine. As you know, nobody likes to lose any of their best players. He has been something more of a, because some people have said, well, we've lost Gareth Bale before, we lost Dimitar Berbatov or Teddy Sheringham, some of these other sort of names, but this one felt a bit different. He's an academy product, now our record goal scorer. People say no sort of player is bigger than the club, but it almost felt like he was part of the club. So it's not been a clean break. I think really on reflection, now that it's all done and dusted, we can probably say it's good that we've managed to get a decent amount of money, even though I don't see that money in my back pocket. It's good at least that the club's been able to get some money back for him, and he's not gone to Man United or Chelsea on a free transfer. He's out of the country. He can go and play in the Champions League. He can go and win the Bundesliga or the German FA Cup, whatever he needs to do. I wish him well on that side of things. I hope he does it. It's a shame, really, that the biggest shame about it is that, number one, that he didn't win anything at Spurs. We've got these, and it's not all about that. We've got some of the best memories I've ever had being a Spurs fan. Some of the best memories I've ever had just as a football fan have been created by Harry Kane. He's been an absolute joy to watch. It's just a shame that we managed to have a player like Harry Kane fall into our lap, let's be honest, and we never really capitalised on that. There were some moments when Spurs kind of looked like a serious challenger under him. If we cast our memories, but I mean, this is mainly for the Bournemouth fans. Back in sort of 16-17, the 17-18 seasons, that's when Spurs were really flying. 16-17, we finished second in the Premier League. It looked like, add a couple more signings into the mix and we really could maybe go on and win something. We had Harry Kane, Christian Eriksen, Dele Alli, Heung-min Son, Jan Vertonghen, Toby Alderweireld, Moussa Dembele, Victor Wanyama, so many great players.
Great team.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic team, and just didn't quite get it over the line. And it's just a shame to see us go from that point, from there being so much excitement around it, to where it kind of ended up, where we don't know for definite what's happened, but there seems to be enough noise around the whole thing to suggest that really there's a breakdown in the relationship between Kane and the club, at least. And he just really just wanted to get out of there. And some people say that maybe it's for the best. Maybe Ange Postecoglou, he wouldn't have worked within his system or anything. But I think any manager in the world would have Harry Kane in their team. So I don't really buy it on that on that side of things. But he's gone on. I don't wish him any ill will. I hope he wins a lot of Bayern Munich. I hope he lifts the Champions League with them and gets the success that I think he deserves, because people are generally always going to say, oh, it's just Spurs fans being biased. But what you're starting to see now on Twitter is even a lot of Bayern Munich fans, even after just his first game, saying, okay, yeah, Harry Kane is a serious player. It's not all just about goals with him. It's about his everything else he gives to the team. He's a truly phenomenal player. He's the best I've ever seen in our shirt, and I wish him well.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I mean, from an outsider looking in terms of Spurs, obviously he's going to be a massive loss for you. But I mean, do you put any of the blame for Tottenham's? Would you call it a downfall? I mean, probably since 2016-17, it probably is a bit of a downfall. But do you lay any of that at Daniel Levy's door?
Oh yeah, I mean, I predominantly do, really. I think the failure to back Pochettino in that period, but then after that, the appointment of, and I mean, I can't backtrack too much, because at the time I didn't like Jose Mourinho, but I understood the decision. I understood, look, Pochettino's left. That's fallen to pieces after the Champions League final. Whatever, the spirit of him, the club, it seemed to be broken. And I understood the idea of bringing in somebody like Jose Mourinho to think, okay, I've still got a good team here. Maybe somebody like Mourinho, who we've seen him win everywhere he goes, can maybe lift this lot up and win an FA Cup or something like that, so it doesn't all feel in vain. But then to bring in somebody like Jose Mourinho and not really back him properly, to mess around for the whole summer after we sacked him and end up with Nuno Espirito Santo, who I think was probably dealt an unfair hand. We'd seen that he could do a good job at Wolves, but I think he got thrown in as like Spurs' fifth or sixth choice right at the end of summer. And then, I don't think any of the players are on board with that. I think it all came out of left field. So he got sacked. And then I think that was the time for us to be like, okay, Mourinho hasn't worked. We've messed around for ages. Let's try and find this, like either a young or an unproven manager. Because I sometimes refer to Postecoglou as a young manager. He's quite the opposite, but he feels almost kind of young in his managerial career, at least in Europe, shall we say. Yeah. And it felt like that was the time for us to bring in that project manager again. But instead, Levy, whether it's his ego, whether it was some kind of vanity appointment or something, went for Antonio Conte, who I think 99% of people who aren't Spurs fans would have said that's not a good fit for Tottenham. Like, this is a guy who kicked off at Chelsea because he said he wasn't getting enough money and ended up leaving there. I think about 50% of Spurs fans, it was very split down the middle. Some were just excited because we've got Antonio Conte in. Others, such as myself, and this isn't some I told you so to any Spurs fans watching, but some such as myself, it's like, this is not a good fit. This guy is not right. And, we saw where it's gone. But, I think whether it's by luck or whether it's by design, we've got Postecoglou in now, and he's had a bit of money to spend, but, I think we probably need a couple of more players to see this really, see what he can do. So, I've got to give Levy that. I think it's a brave appointment to bring in somebody like Postecoglou, really.
Yeah. Now that you've mentioned him, we'll have a quick look at both managers. Obviously, it's both their maiden seasons in the Premier League, so there's not really many stats to go over in terms of Premier League. But in terms of your manager, this was the stats from Saturday. To be fair, I watched the game on Sky, and to be fair, I was quite impressed with Tottenham, to be honest with you. And in terms of United, I mean, were United having an off day, or I don't know? It's a difficult one to say, really.
Yeah.
The best player for United, I thought, was their keeper, so that says it all, really. But what was your thoughts on Saturday's win?
It was a surprise. If, like, not so much that we beat them. We have beaten Manchester United a few times in the past few years. I think it's been a couple of seasons since we last beat them in COVID. That's when we actually beat them 6-1 at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
But I would say the funny thing is the manner of this, although we beat them 2-0 this time, I don't think I've ever seen Spurs really dominate Manchester United like we did, especially in that second half where we pretty much didn't let them play. That first half, I think they had a couple of good opportunities that, on another day, it could have, Bruno Fernandes could have gotten his header sort of slightly under the bar, or our keeper
Yeah.
maybe didn't make that save. But that's football, isn't it? That happens, and they didn't capitalize on. I guess Spurs just maybe trying to find their feet. We had Pedro Porro starting as an actual right back in a back four, and that's always been an interesting one. There's been a lot of debate whether or not he can actually occupy that position. He's better suited to a kind of wing back system, playing in a five. He's a very attack minded individual. Some of his final balls, his deliveries are absolutely fantastic, but his defensive work is sometimes not the greatest. He sometimes seems to get caught out, and I think United were trying to capitalise on that a bit in the first half, and Neville and Keane were really focusing on that as they would. But
Yeah.
it seemed to be the second half we were really settled, and I thought, I thought we looked good. And I mean, we probably got lucky with that Romero handball. I think the whole handball rule. I'm one of those that, thinks if it takes you 5 minutes to decide whether something's clear or obvious or not, it's not clear and obvious. So let's move it along, kind of thing.
Totally agree.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I've seen those handballs given Romero, so I guess we lucked out on that. But I think the team just played brilliantly. The team played in a way that we haven't seen Spurs play since, I guess, 2018 or so, when it was, when we were flying under Pochettino, where it seemed that everybody was reinvigorated, that they were working for one another. They'd remembered that they were a team and that they're there to back each other up, that they seem to be bought into it again now, that they weren't, because we had so many moments at the end of the Conte era where you could tell they were all just fed up. They were fed up of maybe the football, of one another, of the club. I don't know, but you just know that feeling, when your players are just, they're not working hard for each other. They're not creating options. They're not moving into space. They're not, going that extra yard to track back or back up one of their kind of, their teammates. But it seems at the moment everybody's bought into what Postecoglou is trying to do, and it's amazing to see how quickly we've been able to look like we're playing with an actual identity and with a plan again. 2 games in a cup. I think we only had 2-3 pre-season games as well. It's been, honestly, it's been startling to see how quickly we're actually playing good football, and that's not to say it's going to last. It could be a new manager bounce.
Definitely. But in terms of him as a manager, the stats that were on Match of the Day there, that is pretty impressive. In terms of the average passes in the opposition's half. And when you look at his other stats, he's been at international level, which I hadn't realised he had so many positions within the Australian setup. But he's been very, very successful in everywhere he's been. He seems to have brought trophies to every position he's had. Which, to be honest, I knew he'd won things in Scotland, but I didn't realise he'd won trophies elsewhere. So, is he the man that's going to finally bring a consistent amount of trophies to the Tottenham Stadium?
I don't know. I mean, I guess Celtic are the outlier here. What I do know about his past is that what I've learned this summer, at least, about his past, is that he's somebody that thrives with, with the underdog. He manages to kind of turn around the fortunes of teams that haven't won something for a while, or are yet to win something. His team, Brisbane Roar, they actually ended up calling Raw Salona. That was kind of what people knew them as, because they said the football they played was so brilliant and expansive, and they just kept on winning a lot. They seemed unbeatable, and I think I think relatively speaking, they'd been a bit of a Spurs type side over there. Like had been all right, but struggled to really get anything over the line. Obviously, he won the Asian Cup with Australia. That's a huge achievement. There's some incredible teams in the Asian kind of continent over there in that competition. So, I mean, you'd think that he would thrive at a club like Spurs, where I think we all know what we are. We're a decent enough team. I feel like we almost like exist in a kind of little sort of bracket of our own. We used to be in there with, I think, like Villa, Everton, Spurs, Newcastle, maybe. In the past few years, I'd say we've sort of stepped. I mean, Newcastle are obviously they're doing what they're doing now. So again, they almost go into occupy a different place in the conversation now. But
Yeah.
Spurs for the past few years, we've gotten closer to the likes of Arsenal, United, Liverpool, but we haven't gotten it over the line yet. So I don't think we can I don't think we can say we're in that bracket yet, even though we've finished above them and many of those teams over the past few years and beaten them, fairly consistently, most of them, Manchester City especially. But not being able to just get things over the line. And, I think we can all say that Spurs maybe should have done better, but I'm one of those people that, I get quite annoyed really when like neutrals on the media and stuff do the whole Spursy and, what have they won? They've got no silverware. Because I think, well, I just feel that we should get a bit more credit for like how close we've gotten to it. How everyone should see how hard it is to get anywhere in the Premier League with the sort of money that gets spent by some of the massive teams. And Spurs do spend a bit of money. I'm not trying to like pull out the violin here and make out that like, we don't spend a bit of money ourselves, but it's still not quite on the same level as Chelsea, City, United, even Arsenal, really. And the fact we've gotten so close so many times, I think it shouldn't really be something that we're laughed at so much. It should be something that people sort of think, well, fair play. And we can use that as inspiration to show that a lot of other, that we can do it potentially if we do things right. You probably won't like me mentioning another South Coast team, but if we look at Brighton, for example, they seem to be somebody that are, they're making smart acquisitions. They're, finishing way above what their wage structure and spending should say that they should do, but they've got a clear ethos and they believe in their own ability and they're doing it. So, I think that's kind of what Spurs were a few years ago. It's only that we've kind of been a bit more established. But if you think about back in the, a few years back with Martin Jol and all that type of thing,
Yes.
we went from being that sort of mid-table team to being all right again. That's kind of what we did. Bought smart young English players, all this type of thing, and moved up from there. But whether or not Ange is going to win us something, mate, I couldn't say at the moment. I don't know, but I'm enjoying the football. That's what I'd say of it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely, and that's the main thing, that you enjoy in the football. I mean, I don't know how much you know about our gaffer, Mr. Iriola, but a little bit similar to yourself with Ange. He is someone that thrives on being the underdog. I'm sure you saw a result from last weekend. To be fair, we could have been 2-0 up within the first 3 to 4 minutes. But unfortunately, we had the goal ruled out. But he tends to like to play a very attacking style. So it's one of those where it's quite a risky style of play that we're playing. It's kind of one of those where you will get caught out on the counter attack. That's inevitable with the way he plays, but we're kind of playing with a kind of mentality that you score 2 goals, we score 3 kind of attitude. But I mean, he's been at some clubs where, I mean, probably similar to Ange, where he's been at clubs where he's punched above his weight. I mean, he's taken several of those clubs to semi-finals. He's been in Europe with a couple of them. So he is a manager that tends to like to punch above his weight as well.
He got Vallecano, didn't he, to the Spanish semi-final? Didn't he? I think first time in their history, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That's the team he got there. And he also had decent results against Barcelona and Real Madrid with them as well. So he is very much the underdog kind of manager. So yeah, it's going to be a very different. I know we obviously beat you at the Tottenham Stadium
It did.
season,
Yeah.
and obviously you guys beat us at home. But it's going to be a very, very different Bournemouth side you'll see to the side you saw under Gary O'Neill. But it'd be interesting.
I
Sorry,
was just going to say, it's nice to believe, though, isn't it, Matt? Because like you're saying there, that he takes you into games. Yeah, you went to Anfield away, and
yeah,
could have gone 2-0 up. To not just be told by whoever that you just have to be an also ran. That oh well, it's not our place to go and believe that we can maybe go and achieve something, right? It's nice to feel that. Well, yeah, whatever. Let's go. It's 11 men against 11 men. Let's have a game.
yeah, no, absolutely, you're spot on. It's nice now to be able to think like that, and I believe this manager gives us as fans that kind of belief that we can turn up at Anfield and put 2 goals in. Okay, one was disallowed out, but within the first 5 minutes, we could have been 2-0 up. Whereas last season, within the first 5 minutes, we were 2-0 down when they hammered us 9-0. So it gives us a completely different
Yeah,
sense of belief, and it does give us the belief that we may actually achieve something as well. With his cut runs, with his other clubs he's been at. So it does definitely give us something to believe in, rather than just being that kind of club where you're there to make up the numbers and you know just get enough points to stay up every year. It looks like under the new ownership and the signings we've made and the change of manager gives us a little bit of belief that we can just, we're not going to, punch over our weight and, do what Brighton are doing, for example. That's going to take time to achieve
yeah.
that. But in terms of actually giving us some belief and some, real good attacking football to watch, it is brilliant. So, yeah, definitely echo your comments there. Um, well, this is the head-to-heads as we've been in the Premier. And as you can see, obviously Spurs are far superior to ourselves. But even though with your performance against United, and I kind of have a bit of belief we may be able to grind something out at home against you guys.
Well, yeah, it's hard to know because we haven't got the biggest sample size with Ange yet. Well, I
No.
guess we've seen in pre-season that we can play very nicely but still lose. We lost to West Ham. I mean, that was his first ever game in charge. We hadn't brought in our latest centre back, Mickey van der Ven, who we signed towards the end of the window, who looks very, very good. He looks perfectly suited to this system that Ange has got. But I've been sort of saying to my mates, it would be probably quite Tottenham, if you like, to beat United and for everyone to get all excited and then to lose to Bournemouth on the weekend. But
Mhm.
I don't even think that's about like being Tottenham or not. It's just we've got a new manager. People are still learning on the job right now. We've got a lot of young players. We've had quite a big overhaul to our squad actually. Really, there's there are a lot of new faces in there who are, I guess, probably getting to grips with what their role is, how this system operates, and it is a system it's very expansive. We play on the front foot a lot. We do leave ourselves quite exposed at the back. We've got Romero and Van der Ven as our two centre backs, who are both very quick, very physical defenders who have the attributes that you need for this Ange Postecoglou system to get back, to be aggressive in the press. And Destiny Udogie as well, he's a young left back we signed from Italy. We signed him last year from Udinese, but loaned him back to them. He's just come in straight away. I mean, he's 20 years old and he looks absolutely brilliant. He's very promising. But we will attack. We will come at you. And I think one thing that you will probably have going for you at the moment, one thing that will be in your favour, is that our front three haven't quite clicked yet. Son, Richarlison, and Kulusevski.
Mhm.
Um, they haven't gelled particularly well yet. Son's brilliant. Son is, he might not be at his goal scoring best at the moment, but he's working hard and he's linking up play very nicely. James Maddison has been an absolute. I had no idea how good he was. If I'm honest with you,
Yeah,
I'd see him score the odd good goal for Leicester or something on Match of the Day and think, oh well, he's a bit of a tosser and he scores the odd good goal, but he can't be that good because why isn't he playing at Liverpool or somebody? But
yeah, yeah,
he, he shocked me by how good he is. But it looks like he'll be missing this weekend. He picked up a knock against Manchester United, left the stadium in crutches. Don't think it's anything too serious, but the noises coming out are that we're not going to risk him this weekend, which is pretty should be seen as pretty big for you because I would say, been pretty integral to everything that we've been doing for the past few weeks, or past couple of weeks anyway. So yeah, I couldn't really say. I'm looking forward to this. Is like I was saying to you, I'm looking forward to the game. I'm looking forward to watching Spurs. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can become under Ange Postecoglou. But I'm by no means coming into this thinking like, well, yeah, we're going to take the piss here, and we just beat Man United. So of course we're gonna have Bournemouth because, like you say, you're a different outfit yourselves now. And if you're coming at us, then there's every chance you can get something against us.
yeah, yeah. And it's like our managers also said, it's the first few games of the season will still, in some respects, be a little bit like pre-season because he is still trying to get his way of playing and his philosophy across to the players. So it's definitely going to be an interesting game between two new managers and obviously two squads that have had quite a few players go and quite a few new additions. So yeah, it's going to be definitely a interesting one. What we'll have to do now is we'll have a quick look at some player comparisons, just for a bit of fun. We've got the two goalkeepers now. Your goalkeeper, I thought, was absolutely immense on Saturday against United.
Yeah.
Um, it's almost like who's Lloris. This guy is like I've never even heard of him. Not going to lie to you, got no
No,
idea.
nor did I.
Know absolutely nothing about him. But from what I saw in him, he seems like he could probably get to the heights of someone like Neto or Lloris. Become captain of the club or become a real cult hero because he was absolutely outstanding. I thought.
Well, do you know the funny thing is though, during pre-season and even in our first game, he's looked quite shaky, and a few people have been like, maybe we need to just start Fraser Forster and let this lad acclimatise a bit, come to because he'd been, he'd come very highly rated from the Serie A. A lot of Italians were saying, he's a real gem Tottenham have got there, the next Buffon and all this type of thing. And, people always say that, don't they, of a young player? He's the next whoever, Ronaldinho, next Messi. But yeah, so he's looked quite shaky. And then suddenly, like you say, on Saturday against United, he was phenomenal. He was absolutely phenomenal. So more of that, please, Giuliano.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Obviously we've mentioned Song previously, and I mean I've always known he's been a great player, but I didn't realise he'd actually scored over 100. Is it over 100 Premier League goals? Is that right?
Yeah. He's this is the thing that's sort of say unfortunate for Sonny, but he's existed at the same time as Harry Kane. In any other era, Sonny would be held up, in the same esteem as somebody
Yeah,
like Defoe or Sheringham or Berbatov, But it seems, and people are very, he's well loved, especially at Tottenham. But like you say, I think maybe sort of a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, Son's good, but he's the guy that makes all the goals to Harry Kane, But he scores a lot himself, and he's a brilliant player. He's in this Ange system now. It seems to be that he's probably being relied on to be more of a creative outlet, really, as opposed to somebody that will be playing up front. But we'll see. Richarlison struggled a little bit, so we may well see Son go into that striker role, and we'll play somebody like Manor Solomon maybe out on the wing. But for the time being, yeah, he's playing out on the wing, and he's the a great choice for captain. He's a great guy. Everybody seems to love him. I think he's a very hardworking guy. He's a nice. It's nice to have like good people associated with your club, and he's one of the best, I think.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree with you. I mean, in terms of, I was going to say, in terms of the captaincy, do you think that might affect his goal scoring? But it's because of his position change and what Ange is asking him to do as part of the team rather than him not scoring goals then.
I think so. I think if I'm being particularly critical, there's probably a few chances where you would have expected Son to score, but I expect him to. He's performing better already, in my opinion, than he did last year. Last year was not a good year for Son, and it made quite a few of us, myself included, think maybe that Golden Boot year was his last. He's 31 now. Maybe his body is slowing down a bit. He has been. He's a very quick, very kind of agile player. Maybe he hasn't got that quite in his locker anymore, but he's still working hard for the team. And like I say, he is being this creative outlet. He's linked up very well with the doggy, with Basuma, with Madison. And he's trying his best to bring Richarlison into play as well. So I think, we'll give him time. And I'm sure you would say going into this game, you're not really comfortable at the prospect of facing Son. He's a good player, and I think opposition teams will be wary of him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's definitely going to be one of the ones that we would obviously be very, very wary of. In terms of his age, is he 31? Because I read something that they changed the ages in career. Is that right? Is he actually 32 then, but they've knocked him down to 31? I mean, what was all that about?
Yeah, so I think what it is that I think the way in which it's done, from what I understand, the way in which it's done in career is when a baby is born, they are one.
Right.
But
Okay.
we go to the so yeah, I think he was 32 and now they've knocked it back down to 31, I believe.
Well,
So
that's right. You'll squeeze
yeah,
another year out of him then,
yeah,
hopefully.
exactly. Right, yeah, well done. Maybe we'll get another year on his contract as well. Does it work that way? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully for you guys anyway. But yeah, obviously we've got someone like David Brooks out on our wing. I'm sure you're probably aware of him. But he's obviously come back from illness, and over pre-season he's looked like an absolute regenerated player. He's banging them in and creating, and he's someone that you know we're hoping he'll obviously won't get anywhere near the 103 that Song's got, but we'll hopefully start creating some more goals from his wide position, like he has done during pre-season. But if we have a look at another one as well, yeah, this guy. Now I believe on some of the reviews I've read, he got man of the match on Saturday. I don't know much about this guy at all, to be fair.
So we signed him from France, and again another young player that we loaned back to his parent club. I believe it was Lens. And he got a couple of opportunities under Antonio Conte, mainly when there were injuries last season, and notably AC Milan he played against, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, we're throwing this 19-year-old in against AC Milan in the Champions League," and he looked brilliant that day. And then maybe because he would always get thrown in under pressure, like say if there was an injury or if Conte fancied switching up, and so I think at times he looked a bit nervous. But yeah, on Saturday he was phenomenal. He was brilliant. He seemed to have a bit of everything going forward. Like he went on these nice sort of driving runs forwards, driving at the opposition. Manages to pick a pass very nicely. Like I say, often finds space to receive the ball. But it wasn't just that; it was his tracking back, his tackling was so clean. He managed to kind of get a lot of those nice tackles where he would just kind of dink it out the foot of the opposition players without going to ground. But even with some of his sliding tackles, they were great. He was a really good presence. He worked really really hard. I think he'll be hopefully a real big player for the future. You just don't want to put too much expectation on him yet. That's the thing. We're going to have Bentancur back from injury. hopefully soon enough, who I would imagine will take his place in the team. And it may well even be Oliver Skipp who starts against you as well. Oliver Skipp is, obviously one of our young academy players who has pretty much rotated with Sarr quite a lot. The two of them do, but if we take that as Sarr's best performance in a Tottenham shirt, I don't think we've seen Skipp so far put in a performance like that. And I'm very fond of Oliver Skipp. I think he's a very, very good, very solid young player. But like I say, he may well start over Sarr at the moment. Sarr was a bit of a surprise inclusion against Manchester United, so we'll see. But he looks talented. He looks good, but he is very young, so you don't want to put too much expectation on him.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that some of the attributes is similar to someone like Joe Rothwell. I mean, he likes to get in for a good tackle, and he's very good at. I mean, his passing accuracy is pretty spot on. It's probably one of the best in the side. He's a very, very good ball carrier. He can pinpoint a pass pretty much anywhere, whether it's short or long on the pitch. So, it's going to be quite an interesting battle if those two come up against each other in the midfield.
What's his physicality like? What's his engine like? Is he a tireless worker?
Joe Rothwell, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He is someone that just carries on and on and on. So that sounds like quite a decent battle in the midfield for Saturday. Just for a little bit of fun, again, we like to always have a little look down memory lane and see and have a look and obviously discuss your memories of players that have played for both clubs over the years. There's some obviously famous ones and some not so obvious, but Jermaine Defoe, from my perspective, he was an absolute fantastic player. I mean, when he was playing for us in the picture there, I mean, that was when he came on loan from West Ham when he was about 17, and even then you could tell he was going to be a great player. Second time round, I don't think Eddie Howe used him really as much as he probably should have done, to be fair, because no matter his age, he knows where the goal is, and natural goal scorers do that no matter what the age is. But what's your memories of Defoe at Tottenham?
Oh, very, very happy memories. I'm a big fan of Jermaine Defoe. I remember when we first got him from West Ham, just being so excited, thinking, like you say, you knew his ability to score goals. You saw him score all types of goals all the time, and he was lethal, and he had that shot that he just used to hit with so much power. I didn't know how he used to generate it. But yeah, I think he's a fantastic player. It was a shame when we sold him the first time around, and I was glad we rectified that decision because he's a great player. He's one of our record goal scorers as well. I can't remember how many he eventually got in his Tottenham career. I want to say off the top of my head, 135, I think. But he's up there with one of our best ever Premier League strikers. And there's a nice story. I don't know if you've ever heard this one, but there was an interesting story from when Harry Kane was he was a young boy, a schoolboy playing around in his local area, and he says he always remembers because he used to be a Spurs fan, despite the old picture of him in an Arsenal shirt apparently. But he was apparently a Spurs fan anyway, and he said him and his mates were out playing football in this local field, and then this big like BMW or truck or something pulled up, and then out jumps Jermaine Defoe and just says, "Fancy a kick about, lads?" And this is when Defoe was playing for Spurs, and he just said all the lads were absolutely buzzing. And then Harry Kane, when he started playing up through the academy and all that, reminded Jermaine Defoe about this. And they actually did a nice little video for Tottenham's YouTube about it not so long ago when Harry Kane overtook Jermaine Defoe in the goal scoring records. And they were just, remembering that story. And Defoe was saying, yeah, it's just a nice thing to do. I love football. And in that position, it's always good to remember what you can give to the next generation, give to other people. We know about his relationship with Bradley, that sadly passed away, the little lad up in Sunderland. Just gives you some measure of the bloke. You can tell he's a good guy, he's a nice guy, and I've got nothing but fond memories of Jermaine Defoe at his time at Spurs. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I mean I've never heard that story before, but that's a great one
it's
to hear.
brilliant. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah.
Brilliant. So, and like you say, it just shows you what kind of guy he is. Next one on the list, you probably won't know this one, but the Bournemouth fans will do. He's a bit of a Bournemouth legend. He was part of the Spurs academy. Didn't actually break into the first team, Neil Young, but he was signed by Bournemouth from Spurs when he was in the youth team there.
Oh, really? When was that?
Oh God, I'm going back to I was only about 9. I'm going back 1994.
Okay.
1994. So a lot of the older Bournemouth fans, well, he is a Bournemouth legend, to be fair. Obviously only played for us in the lower leagues, but bit of an icon there that come from Spurs. This guy is an interesting one.
Yeah.
We never saw the best of him really at Bournemouth in the Premier League. But he had a really good, decent season with us in the Championship. Um, what what's your thoughts on him?
It seems to me, honestly, I feel like it's one of those what could have been. I think now, had we signed him under Ange Postecoglou, we'd be seeing a completely different Arnett Danjuma at Tottenham. I think he did, dare I say, he'd be very well suited and actually play very well for
Mm,
Ange Postecoglou. But Antonio Conte being Antonio Conte, just, had this thing, this aversion to what he would call club signings. And it was this very pointed remark he would continue to make in press conferences and everything, which I guess would seem to suggest they weren't a player that he had identified. Um, and yeah, he just wasted a year of his life at Tottenham, and I feel for that lad. I don't say that as anything he's done wrong. We saw the same thing happen with Basuma, who this year has been our best player,
oh
and
yeah,
it's got everyone saying, "What was Antonio Conte on about?" So I just feel that Danjuma he fell victim to whatever that was. I think the couple of opportunities he got at Tottenham, he scored goals. I think he scored 2 goals for Spurs.
yeah. He
And
scored against us, being one of them.
yeah, and I think he scored in the FA Cup, I want to say. Or was that against you in the FA? I can't remember.
No,
He's
us was the league. I think this picture here, he's celebrating his other goal, which I think it was the cup. I think.
Yeah, I think it was the FA Cup, and he always seemed decent. He seemed like the sort of player that is going to get you off your seat, quick, can dribble. But yeah, it's just one of those what could have been. You feel bad for him, and he's had to go back to Everton with his tail tucked between his legs, because he
No.
he obviously spurned them on the when he was supposed to be signing for them and came to
Yeah,
Tottenham.
yeah, that's a funny one, isn't it? I don't know what I'd think about it if I was an Everton fan, but then if I was an Everton fan at the minute, I'd take anybody, and I think he's going to have a difficult season there at
I
Everton.
think I think what he did quite well though, him and his team, I think it was him and his agent just said, look, all right, sorry, but come on, guys, let's be honest, Spurs were in the Champions League at that time, getting managed by Antonio Conte. It was a good opportunity for him. And
Yeah,
they were just honest about it. And I think that's that kind of thing. I think most people could just say, okay, right, fair enough. And as long as he, is here to play football now. But I agree with you. I think Everton are in real trouble.
yeah, I do think so now, definitely. This guy, don't know if you
Uh,
remember.
I do remember him, mate. I was sad to see him go.
Well, yeah,
I was. He was always such a promising youth player, and he's just unfortunate in that Kyle Walker became Kyle Walker, and they were competing for the same position. And I think he just wanted more football, first team football, which was fair enough because the few times we ever got to see him, he always looked brilliant. There's a lad called Windy. I'll give him a shout. He focuses a lot on the youth players, Tottenham's young players and everything like that, and he raved about Adam Smith for years. And he's gone on to, he's looked absolutely fantastic for you. And he always tends to put in a good performance against Spurs as well, and you can understand why.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, I think he's still going to be out injured for Saturday's game, but we've got a young Max Aarons to replace him. But yeah, he's an absolute icon down at Bournemouth. He's our highest Premier League appearance maker, currently vice captain. But he's been a great servant for Bournemouth. He really has. Don't know if you'll know this one. Again, similar era to Neil Young. I'm going back to he signed for us 94-95 season. Another uh, product of the Spurs youth system. Charlie Daniels. Another one. I think he may have been in the Spurs youth side a similar time to Smith. Might have been before Smith, to be fair.
Slightly before, yeah, slightly before, 2, 3 years before, but another decent player, Charlie Daniels. He's
Yeah,
always somebody that, was always tipped to just being on the cusp of maybe breaking into Spurs' first team, but for whatever reason didn't quite make it. It's a good player though, isn't he?
yeah. I mean, he's again. I mean, I think at Bournemouth, one of the moments he'll always be remembered for was that strike against Man City.
Yeah.
But again, a player that dropped down the leagues, joined us when we were in League One, rose up to the Premier League with us, and again become a club legend. And for the Cherries fans watching, or maybe if there is any Spurs fans watching that are interested, there's a very, very good interview on the channel with Charlie Daniels, where we talk about everything from his days at Spurs to his periods out on loan, coming to Bournemouth, his injuries, and to what he's doing now. So if you're interested, check it out. It's on the channel on the interview section. It's a good watch. Yeah. Well, sick note. Do you call him sick note? I don't know, but
A,
um,
a lot of people do, but I've got, he's one of my boyhood heroes, Darren Anderton. I loved him.
yeah. When he come to Bournemouth, I mean, he had no legs really, bless him, but
No.
he could still ping a ball. And I remember a few free kicks he took from like 25, 30 yards out and just smashing them in. And it was an honour to see a World Cup goal scorer play for little old Bournemouth, who were obviously League One, League Two at the time. But what a player for Spurs!
What a player, yeah.
I mean, I think he won the old Worthington Cup with them, didn't he? If I remember
Yeah.
rightly, and it was just probably a shame, the amount of injuries he did have. But yeah, it was such an honour to go and watch him play for Bournemouth every week. Well, when he was fit, anyway. But
I mean, he's a real what could have been because he was just on the verge of going to United, and then I think he got one of his first big injuries, and then Beckham broke through at United. So that's kind of one of those. The rest is history. But yeah, like you say,
yeah,
marvelous player and quite forgotten really, and which is a shame because he was so talented.
yes, yeah. I mean, it's a shame with like old players. Sometimes ones like Darren Anderton get forgotten about by their clubs, and
Yeah,
it is a great shame, really. Um, but I believe he's actually living out in America now. I think, if
is
I'm
he?
not, I
Is
believe
he
so.
coaching or anything?
I don't think he is. No, I don't think he is. But all in all, great player, and
Yeah,
yeah, it be nice to see him have some sort of ambassador role at Spurs or something like that. Like pre-match dinner speaker or something. Like they do in this hospitality and all that. But yeah, I mean, I've got his autobiography as well, and that's a cracking read.
really. Oh, I'll check that out.
Good all round player, Darren Anderson. This guy probably won't know him. I don't even know him, to be fair. Look,
I do know him. Yeah, I do know him actually, but
do
only
you?
because he often does the legend circuits and stuff around Spurs. Yeah,
Ah,
Maxi Miller as they call him. So yeah, I think he's quite a character, quite a personality around.
yeah.
But I don't remember him as a player, obviously.
No,
But
no, I don't either. I think I was that's about 1990. Must have been coming towards the end of his career when he was at Bournemouth. But
yeah,
yeah, a name that's linked to both clubs anyway. Another one that neither of us will probably remember, but
no,
some
good
of the
kick
older
though. That
Bournemouth.
Tottenham Hummel one.
Yeah, I was going to say, in terms of retro kits, which obviously is massive, massive market at the moment, that is some hell of a retro kit right there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, for the older Bournemouth fans watching, they'll appreciate Richard Cook's exploits for Bournemouth. J.U. Redknapp, um, probably a little bit similar to Darren. I mean, I never saw him in a Bournemouth shirt, unfortunately. I was just a little bit too young. It was just before I started going. But in terms of Spurs, was it not an injury hit period at Spurs really for him when he left
I think he
Liverpool?
was all right. He was coming towards the end of his career. I think we got him on a free transfer from Liverpool.
Right.
And it was, it was a time when Spurs like, yeah, that was a good move for us. It was, it was a good transfer, and you could tell he was, you could tell he was a decent player. He scored a good free kick. I mean, the day is marred by the fact that Arsenal won the league at White Hart Lane that day. I hate to say
Yeah.
it, but he scored a good free kick that day against them, which is all right. But I think because his dad signed him for Bournemouth, didn't he? And I think that's what people call nowadays. They call it a nepo baby, don't they?
Is that what they call it? Is it?
Yeah.
Well, his dad signed him twice, didn't he? His dad signed him at Bournemouth when he was in the youth, and then he signed him again at Southampton, didn't he? So
Oh yeah, yeah,
Harry,
yeah.
Harry signed him twice, but yeah, yeah, like you say, quality player. But again, you know, probably lived in the shadow of a few other players that made it for England. I mean, I remember him scoring an awesome goal for England. I think it was against like someone like Switzerland or somebody like that. I think it was at the Stadium of Light, and he hit a proper rocket. But yeah, I think with injuries and everything, he could never really cement himself into the England squad. But
No.
all in all, great player. And to be fair, he's probably one of my favourite pundits as well. But hey ho, if you can have a favourite pundit. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, here's an interesting one. Now, this guy I didn't realise had made some first team appearances for Tottenham, but I don't know if you remember anything of Lee Barnard.
I don't really remember much of his time on the pitch for Spurs, but I do remember again him being one of those players where there's a lot of talk around. Harry Kane before Harry Kane, if you like. Everybody. One of the best things in football, isn't it, is to speculate about one of the kids in the academy. Could
Yeah,
they make the step up? Could they be the next homegrown hero? And I think for years we'd gone through like a good number of young strikers, because this is why Harry Kane's been such a gift for us, because finding the striker at Spurs has been a real chore for like quite a long time. And we'd had a couple of good players down the years and stuff. Obviously, I mean, like Robbie Keane and Berbatov, we had Defoe, but there were always these kind of patches where we not really managed to get a striker. And so we'd always wanted to get like one of these young players through. And there's another young striker called Jamie Slabber, who I think was playing maybe slightly before Lee Barnard, but sort of around the same time, actually. Um, but yeah, Lee Bonner was another one of those where we are like, can he get through? Can he make it? And then just, for whatever reason that happens with young players, just didn't ever kind of make that step up.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he dropped down the leagues and eventually found himself at Bournemouth. I think he was on loan from Saints at the time, actually, from Southampton. Scored a couple of goals for us. Didn't really make much noise, but yeah, another name that's associated with both clubs. And this guy, don't think he ever made a first team appearance for Spurs. He come on loan to Bournemouth when I think it was when Eddie Howe first took over, when we were rock bottom of the League Two, and I remember him setting up a Wickham player to score a goal by just throwing the ball out. Harrowing, but I believe he went on to play for Brighton. But I think he might have retired now. To be fair, David Button. But yeah, he's not left a lasting impression in the Bournemouth faithful. Apart from that,
Can't be fun being a goalie, I don't think. It's tough, isn't it? You just got to get that opportunity and make sure you don't mess up at all. It's so
yeah,
ruthless. It's such a ruthless like position to break through, and especially as a young goalkeeper.
yeah, and I think he didn't do himself any favors at Bournemouth, to be fair. But anyway, he made it to the Premier League. I think he played in the Premier with West Brom, and like I say, last I heard
Oh,
he was at
he,
Brighton.
he, he, he's still going. He's at Reading now.
He's at Reading now, is he? Oh,
Yeah,
fair
I just
play.
wanted to check. I was wondering. Yeah, he's 34. He's at Reading.
Well, he's still got some years in him. So, yeah,
Yeah,
fair
and he's
play.
3 appearances for them this season. So you know,
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. Right. Looks like he's going to be playing for the Royals then this season. But let's have a look at this guy. Now, this guy, he seems to appear on every one of these we do.
yeah,
Because he's played for West Ham and he was on our West Ham one and we've done a few last season and he just appears and I don't even remember him playing for Tottenham to be fair, but yeah, unfortunately for us, he's quite injury prone. But a real good player, a lot of pace about him. But
that
I
was
mean,
it. Yeah.
did he break into to Spurs first team or?
Yeah, I think he made a couple of appearances in, I want to say like the League Cup or FA Cup. We saw
Uh,
him play a few times, and there was always that kind of bit of promise there. But around that era, around that time he was breaking through, that was when we had a real, the
yeah,
makings of a really good team,
yeah, yeah.
and it was just very hard to break through. So it's no real reflection on him, to be honest. It's just just the sort of players we had at that point. But again, I think he was another one of those like young players that people had spoken about. Like he might be one that if he seizes his opportunities, could be somebody that breaks through. But didn't quite happen.
And let's just have a look at some of the managers very, very quickly with connections. Now, obviously, Scotty Parker,
Really, yeah.
he's a little bit splits the Bournemouth faithful.
I
Obviously,
was going to ask you about that because there was a lot of talk about how exciting he was for a time with you, and then it just sort of
yeah, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's he when he come in. I mean, the first 15 games of the season, if you'd have watched them, you would have said you'd have gone straight to the bookies and put money on Bournemouth lifting the championship trophy.
yeah,
After Christmas, we just kind of just went to shit, really. I suppose in some
really.
respects, and yeah, we just scraped through. If we didn't have that run of 15 games, we would never have come second. And if that run had a continued all season, we would have probably ended up like 11th or 12th. So the second half of the season was not good at all. But the start of the season, and to be fair, he didn't have a lot of money in the transfer market at the time. He started the first cup game with I think about three or four youth teamers. So he didn't have it, too easy. But when we got to the Premier League, he just lost the changing room.
Yeah.
So, you know, then you get hammered 9-0, and then you say publicly that the squad's not, good enough to compete in the Premier League, and next thing you lose your job. But yeah, bit split. I mean, fair play to him. He got us to where we wanted to be, but was I ever a fan of his? Well, I'm really on the fence with it, to be fair, with Scotty P. But I mean, I think
Fantastic player.
yeah, yeah. In terms of as a player, I mean, I think he played for pretty much every London club, didn't he? Chelsea, West Ham, Spurs,
Yeah, I don't
Charlton.
think he played for Arsenal, but yeah, I think a lot of them. Yeah,
Yeah, because I think is he the only England player to earn a cap at four London clubs?
that's
Uh,
a good stat. I didn't know that. Not a stat, but a fact, isn't it? That's
I think he is. Don't quote me on it because I think he had a cap at Charlton, a cap at West Ham. He was capped at Chelsea and he was capped at Tottenham. But I might be wrong. But it's something that might be worth googling when you get 5 minutes. But um, yeah, Redknapp, Kevin Bond. Obviously, Kevin Bond and Redknapp both played for Bournemouth. Um, Harry's era. What any fond memories of Harry's era?
mate, yeah, some of the very best of all time. The football he played was exciting. It was the Tottenham way, if people want to say that kind of thing. Front foot, attacking. He managed to unlock the potential in such a brilliant squad of players. Who were his famous, he liked to bring up all the time, 2 points from 8 games before he came in. Looked like it might be the year that Spurs actually go down. And then he turned that around in the space of a year to see us finishing the Champions League places for the
Yeah.
first time ever,
Mm.
with a win up at the Etihad. And then we had that magnificent Champions League run, which I know we've gotten to the final under Pochettino, but that run under Harry Redknapp when we got to I think it was the quarters. Yeah, we got to the quarters that time. That was probably more fun. That was more spectacular. It was incredible. It was a hell of a ride under him, and it was a shame that you know all the sort of stuff off pitch happened, and
Yeah.
I think he lost his focus a bit because he wanted the England job. It obviously meant a lot to him, and I think he never really recovered from that afterwards. Whether he sort of lost the love for it a bit, and I think maybe the club, the players, maybe felt a little bit betrayed. I couldn't say, but it did start to sort of fall away a bit after that. But you don't need to focus on that. Just some very, very fond memories. A great time, a hell of a ride. Amazing. Some of the best I've ever had as a Spurs fan.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I can remember his time at Spurs, and we've actually, Harry's a friend of the channel. He's been on quite a few times, and we've actually we've got loads of videos with Harry on the channel, but there is one particular one which is pretty good that people that might be watching this episode might want to tune into. But there's a video on our channel where Harry talks about coaching the best, some of the world's best, and obviously he discusses Gareth Bale in that video. So if any of you fancy checking that out, that is on the channel. Jonathan Woodgate, our final one, obviously managed Bournemouth for a short time. All I can seem to remember about Jonathan Woodgate is his debut for Real Madrid. I think coming off the bench, lasting 8 minutes and getting sent off. But
Yeah.
I don't have many. Oh, obviously his time at Leeds mainly, but Spurs. Was he one of the ones that won the Carling Cup at Spurs?
He scored the winner. He scored the winner of the last trophy that Tottenham won. Came off his face, but still, he
They
was
all
in the right position to get on the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that wraps up our little trip down memory lane anyway. And let's get back onto Saturday's game briefly before we finish up with our predictions. Let's have a look at our key men for Saturday's game. Now, for me, these three can be very, very important for Bournemouth come Saturday. Zabanier, our Ukrainian international defender, only a very young lad, only about 2021, if that, but a very, very mature brain, should we say. So he could be very keen in dealing with the likes of Richardson and Sung. Samanio, obviously had an awesome game at Liverpool. When I saw him on the team sheet, I was questioned it a little bit, but after the sort of first 10 minutes, you could see why Iriola put him in, and he can really cause defences problems and can also create from behind the front man. And Jordan Anthony, obviously an ex Arsenal youth team player, so he'd be up for playing against Spurs. And not only that, he's
There's always got to be one somewhere. There's always
yeah,
got to be an El Guna somewhere that's waiting to score against us.
yeah. Well,
Always the way.
he's our old Gooner for Saturday, and he's also a pretty decent young player. Can play on either wing, and is good with the ball. Can distribute a ball pretty well. So if he's in the starting lineup, which hopefully he will be, he can definitely cause Spurs some issues as well. And your three key men, then, Jack. Talk us through why you've picked these three guys.
Well, Guillermo Vicaria, as I was saying, we he was great against Manchester United. I think any goalkeeper within this Ange Postecoglou system is going to be put under pressure. They're going to need to be at their very best. So he's going to be key for us because he quite simply has to be. Let's just hope he can carry on that, like we were talking about him earlier, that Manchester United form, and keep out whatever it is that you come at us with. James Maddison, it just seems to be just today that we're hearing the news really that this is Wednesday, the day we're recording, that he is going to be likely missing. So
Yeah.
I need to put a big red cross through his picture on here. But he has been, like I say, I've been shocked by how good he's been, and it should be very, very good news for you lot that he's not playing, because he's really made us tick these past couple of games. You'd imagine that Lo Celso will come in his place, who has looked all right in pre-season, has always played very well for Argentina, but has had not a very good Tottenham career. So it's hard to know where how that one will work out. But yeah, James Maddison, it'll be a big loss for us. And Yves Bissouma, who has gone from barely getting a sniff under Antonio Conte to looking every bit. We're talking about Moises Caicedo, talking about Declan Rice being £100 million footballers. Yves Bissouma looks every bit as good as them. Like, he looks. I'd always known Brighton fans were saying how good he was, and we'd seen him play. If I'd ever watched them play against Spurs or against Arsenal or something like that, got fond memories of him laughing at the Emirates when they beat Arsenal there when he was playing for Brighton. But I had no idea he's quite as good as he as he is, because he looks like he's got the lot. He looks absolutely unbelievable. A real leader on the pitch, leads by example, defensively brilliant. Seems to be a real nightmare to get the ball off of. Dribbling. I mean, I don't know if you've seen his ridiculous back heel nutmeg of Casemiro against Manchester United on the weekend, but that's
Yes.
all over Twitter. You can have a look at that. Like,
Yeah.
he's got a bit of flair. He's got a bit of the lot. He's very, very, very exciting. So he's been man of the match in our past two games. I know some people gave it to Sarr last time, but Sky gave it to Basuma, and he's going to be very important to us achieving anything. He works very, very hard, and like I say, he's creative. He's a hard worker, defensively brilliant. He's got the lot. He's everything you'd want in a midfielder, at least so far. So
Yeah, and it looks like that Ange is going to get the best out of him as well. So, well, that's the key men, danger men for Saturday's game. So there's one last thing that we need to do, and that is for us to give our score predictions. So I'll, as you're the guest, Jack, I'll let you go first.
I'll get the fun job. I think it's going to be a close game, like you say. I think you're going to come at us. You're not going to sit back. We had a hard time against Brentford with them sitting back, but if you're coming at us, you maybe will leave yourselves open. We do have some good attackers there. We've got Richarlison waiting to get a goal, but you can always score against us. I'm a Spurs fan. I'm going to have to be hopeful. I'm going to say there's going to be goals in it, but I'll say 2-1 to Spurs. That's what I'm hoping for.
Okay, no, that's fair enough, and you're absolutely spot on that. We will obviously make ourselves make ourselves liable to concede. So we're bound to concede. So, but I'm going to go with the same score, but the other way around, 2-1 Bournemouth. But that's what me heart's telling me anyway. My head's telling me
Yeah,
something, so I'll go with me heart. I've got to back my team. So
that's
yeah,
it.
I'll go with a 2-1 Bournemouth. But
Andoni's letting you believe, mate. Andoni's letting you believe, mate.
that's
That's
it.
it. You know.
That's it. That's it. That's what he's doing. He's making us all believe that we can now compete against, and we have done in the past. We've beaten the big sides. Obviously, we've beaten you guys. We've beaten
Yeah.
United. We've beaten pretty much everybody. I think apart from Man City. So, but yeah, thanks for joining us on this week's Head to Head, Jack. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure, mate. Thank you.
Good luck to Spurs for the season, apart from the 2 times you play us. I hope you don't turn up at both games. And but other than that, I wish you all the best of the season.
And you, mate. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks very much.